Welcome, family. My name is Mother Baphomet. Some call me Mother Goddess Baphomet. Some call me Aminarenas. I have many names, in truth, but these are the names that I like to go by because they really do encompass all that I am and stand for. So, as a foundation of knowing me, these are the names that I choose. And you know, the the names that we choose are very, very, very important. It dawned upon me, um, someone reached out to me, just being friendly, and gave me some amazing news. It said, um, I've just become a new dad, and yeah, we had a daughter, and this is her name, and they'd given her a very beautiful name. I won't say what her name is here, but I will say, just to protect her energy a little bit, but I will say that um, her name was very clear spelling of the intention that him and his wife um, set out for the child. Um, when it comes to names, often, as we grow, we tend to want to create our own name. We want to create our own sense of personality, style, and purpose. So we often abandon the names that we've been given at some point and find a name for ourselves once we go through this process. However, that name that we're really giving at birth, it really just set us up for the future, and nothing is, without reason. Everything that's been done, given to us throughout our lives, including at birth and at that naming registry office, was all massive part of our plan and ingredients that do make up the foundation of who we are. So, like, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because this is something really, really important that I think nowadays, um, probably not a lot of parents actually think about. Um, if you are from any so-called indigenous culture, i.e., you might be from Arabic culture or one of the African language speaking countries, or you might be, I don't know, from maybe, let's say, um, like, a Christian background. Um, Often parents do find names that really have meaning. Um, um, Tribal, probably a little bit more clearer than religious, but all the same, they're all spells. And this has been a massive part of our culture as humans for thousands of years. If we look back into the etymology of names, the foundations of where they come from, we'll see that a lot of names are affected by the times, by what's happening politically within that time, um, and that people naming their children really would have um, a deep sense of wanting to create for them a life path that somehow would be beneficial to the fold, to their clan, um, and thus will give them these names. Um, as of more recent, as we've become travelers again, um, lost travelers in many senses, we become very separate, and names have become more like a tool, really, to give the child or the adult, in some cases, pleasure, just pleasure from the name. And this is really a massive reflection as well of society as society is today, um, where we think more about pleasure than we do about experience. We think more about whether I'm going to enjoy this, is it going to be less painful, rather than, um, you know, what is this going to teach me? So I am going to go back a little bit, 'cause I was born in the 80s in it. So I was grown up during the like 80s and 90s, and especially in the 90s in the UK, where I'm from London. Um, we saw a rise of lots of names like, Mercedes and stuff like this. Yeah. So, you know, um, parents really at that time thinking like, like some names they feel opulent, and they might seem like names that might bring wealth. Ironically, none of these names really brought wealth, and somehow end up as people who become stereotypes. um Spells do work like that. um but yeah, and so, we were really thinking heavily at that time, as parents, what's it going to be like when my child goes to school? you know are they going to get bullied for their name? um cult well, it's hard to say because everything is culture. But what we deem as like cultural, like, parents, you know, probably were rebelling against this new way of naming. And you do see that some kids with more traditional names being like bullied and stuff like during these times. But then as time goes on and they become adults, and start to integrate with the purpose of these names, we really get to see how, these names develop within them and develop as part of their character. So yeah, that was a quite cool experiment. um and there's no wrong in anything. Of course, if your name is Mercedes, I'm sorry to point you out like that. And I do hope that actually that your name did bring you some wealth and some sense of opulence, and definitely pleasure during those times where other kids might have been getting bullied for the traditional names. That I'm glad that you was okay. However, you know, it strikes me that the reasons why we call our kids names, sometimes names that just because we like them, because they sound good, because they're not going to get picked on, not really great excuses like for life, or a good enough reason to actually let go of the opportunity to give that person a name that is really going to serve them in a fruitful way for the rest of their life, and not just as a child, especially as childhood is such a brief period of many of our lives. um especially if they're in school, ironically. School really separates, disconnects us from our parents, from our families, and gives us a sense of independence and adulthood, really, from such a young age that we stop remembering that we are children like quite early. And apart from having to work, which in some places of the world where the child doesn't go to school, the child has to work, you know, in an ancient concept of how we could have lived. Yeah, that childhood definitely would be a much longer. And I'm not talking about dark ages ancient as well. I'm talking about matriarchal ancient. I'm talking about lines ancient. As I said, not in a world where we're forced by our environment and political setting, where children have to go to work. I'm talking about an environment where one is given the room that one needs to grow and learn as much as it can from each stage to the next. You know, this does actually, just going slightly off tangent here, but it's very important actually. Um, this does stunt our growth and ability to become real elderly. You know, most of us, if we reach to 80, will be very happy and say thank you very much for life. But at 80 years old, even at 80, we've had literally just like 8 decades of being here on Earth, and Earth is a really, really vast, vast plane with so many dimensions of perception, and um, you know, so many worlds, to discover. Here, um, so many cultures, personality types, all of these wonderful reflections everywhere around us, um, to teach us. So imagine 80 years, especially for most of us who don't really travel too much from the region where we were born. It's not really a lot of time. Becoming adults so quickly, you know, that will actually speed up our life. And shout out to all the people that feel young and exploring their child self. Exploring your child self will definitely give you plenty more years, if not give you the purpose to do something about your avatar, about this body and temple, so that you can give yourself more and more years. And I speak as testament to that. Um, looking now into my future and seeing just how wonderful things can be from all the things that I'm learning, and really wanting to be there for that, so that I can explore and enjoy that as well. you know so have now, aligning with that thought is bringing me back to a state of health where health for a big part of my life was not really a concern, more so just being childish was more of my concern, just being myself and being free. But yeah, back to names. Um, you know, when we give a child a name at birth and we say, okay, this is your purpose. This is my thoughts for you when you came into the world. You know, a lot of us probably would rebel against that um, misguided rebellion. Because our mothers and fathers are indeed our creator, yeah, and um, prior to even being born, I heard a story. I can't remember the name of the tribe. So if somebody does know the name of the tribe, please do throw it into the comments. In this story, it talked about a tribe where the when the two parents would get together and they would say, well, let's go and make a baby. They would go and find a tree and they would sit under the tree and they would wait and they'd kind of like meditate together, and then they would start like singing together just naturally from the heart, and they would come up with a song, right? And in this moment, this is what they considered to be the moment of conception. This song for their baby is like a landmark of, you know, the very first idea about who the baby is going to be. So this is like the conception in the ether of the baby, and they would sing this song. And they would sing this song until they get pregnant. And of course, the baby's birthday would be actually from the moment when this song was made. Anyway, they would sing this song, and everyone in the tribe, because of this act, would always have their individual song. And apparently, when the person was born and then died, everyone in the tribe would learn the song as well. The parents would go back and would teach everyone, so they would not learn the song. When the baby was born, they would be singing this song while the baby was born. And then as the person grew older and then died, at their death, they would be singing this song as well. So the concept for this particular tribe, and I really do, I wish I knew what the name of them um was that, like, in the thought you are perceived, and once perceived, once imagined, as Einstein said, it's like, that thing is then real. So it's Einstein said, what can be imagined is real. So this really just like this is very powerful. Actually, this is a very powerful sense of alchemy, because it really teaches us, how strong those thoughts are, from even in the womb, um, a sense of connection to you, and kind of knowing like who you are. Of course, we grow and we like to surprise our creators, not creator, but here on this earthly plane, you know, um, we do like to surprise ourselves and show what can grow from the foundations that we're given. But these foundations are indeed very, very, very powerful, and very, very meaningful. Um, yeah, so names definitely, definitely um, should be well thought about. Um, and when we look into things even like numerology, which can be based sometimes upon the names that were given, i.e., life path number, destiny numbers. These things show us again how meaningful the names that we've been given are, even when written in code, to say, you know, that we are, when we just been given this name for pleasure, actually, these codes are also helpful for us. It's more hidden codes within. But when you name your child and you give them a name as such that um, is clear for them to see and understand, then they can really get to that point of understanding from seeing how that name sits with them and helps them to discover who they are over time. And I'll give you an example. My name is a great example. My name that I was given at birth is Serena. Serena. Um, Serena is a beautiful name. I'm very thankful to my parents for giving me this name. I'm told it was my dad that really, really wanted this name. He is definitely of between the two of my parents, the sentimental one that saved me. You know, maybe I would have been I had a name that wasn't so clear to understand. But my name given was Serena. And I tell you how this name has sat with me over the years. As a child, I didn't really understand, what Serena was doing for me. But throughout my childhood, I really felt a sense of fragility, mostly. Um, and I do believe now that this sense of fragility, really helped me to remain humble and really helped me to stay clear of maybe events and things that could have brought more trauma. I mean, of course, all of us have trauma of some sense through childhood. You just don't grow up without some sense of trauma, no matter where you come from. Um, but definitely having the name Serena made me very gentle. Um, I have other names as well, and those names, um, they helped me to feel powerful. But with Serena being my forename, the very first name I think of, the thing that I'm being called all the time, and not really knowing even what Serene is, you know, this deep, I like, I just somehow, this was my personality type. I was quite a fragile child, strong-willed, but fragile at the same time. I definitely believe that as time went on, that name helped me through other things when I was feeling fragile and maybe feeling like energies were attacking me and making me not feel maybe as special, you know, as you should feel. to be human. This is amazing. Like, look at this, like hands, face, eyes, hair, like human. Like, this is great. So many species all around us. We get to be human. Like, this, like, how can we not feel special? But when you are in a world where being human is not the you know is is not necessarily made out to be like that special, and every other creature is maybe just dominated, you can start to not realize how important your journey is as a human being, the spirituality, understanding um who we are, and the importance of being human is, yeah, it's a big thing, and definitely should be taught to all children. But fortunately, I was given some of those lessons, maybe not in that sense, but some of those lessons to let me know that, I'm a divine being and I come from a special place and I am special. But the name Serena, I guess, did help me to feel beautiful as well. So first, fragile, then beautiful, you know. Okay, like Serena. Yeah, I like it. It's pretty, not just because it's pretty sounding. It's almost like flowers, just bring a sense of peace. Right. Okay, so this name is, you see how this name over time is just evolving and it's just showing me a little bit more as we are. So I grow up now, I grow, and um I start to explore. I start to become more empowered. I start looking at, and start feeling like some of my other names, so that I've got other names, and some of these other names are more stronger. And I start to like think about myself and like being in that character as well. And realizing that, like, I'm powerful as well. But as I'm kind of like adapting to this new power, I got to say again, the name Serena really helps me a lot. Um, to be calm, to think, to like have this clear mind. It was as if, you know, somewhere, I mean, I don't think my dad would think of himself as a psychic or anything like that. But definitely a sense of spirit inside of him looked at me like as a baby and said, this little baby, she's just looking so peaceful right now. She's going to be a peaceful person. I'm going to call her Serena. Really knew, what was due, for me, what was owed to me from life. Really felt that. Um, and yeah, so like later on, a sense of humility as well. So not just, so from fragile to beautiful to humble, calm, um, and though definitely I have my moments, too many to count, as we all do, you know, um, it's this name again, Serena, that reminds me of who I am. And that baby that my dad stared into my face and knew that all I wanted was for everything to be at peace, you know. And definitely, I would say that from there, Serena is not just about being tranquil, it's about creating tranquility. So, actually, doing the work and somewhere along that, my life path number based upon my name is 9. And if you know what the number 9 means in numerology, number 9 is about completion, and number 9 is about leadership, and number 9 is about creating, like, new worlds, you know. So yeah, people with life path 9 really aspire to create new worlds and can lead, you know, energies within themselves and around themselves to be able to do that, and are destined to do that. And definitely the name Serena gives me great purpose to do that, to do something to create peace, is very, very, very important. um so yeah, this is just, as I said, an observation of me, just so I can give you like a little example about how do I, these things work and how they do unfold over time. I'm going to do a few of these videos. This one today is more of just a foundation into the importance of words. So if you've been following my vlogs and blogs, um, you've been reading and seeing the information that I post in terms of demystifying occult practices, bringing occult practices into the light, and giving it back to us so that we can use our alchemy. One of the ways in which I do this is that I use spelling. I use spelling a lot. I tend to write in capitals the spells that I use in my words. I do that so that people who are reading it can learn straight away um, what I mean within reading it. Um, I I try to bring out the etymology in the words that I use, and as I said, make them very clear and show a very clear way of why I'm trying to use it and why I'm using it in that particular moment. So I can be having a conversation about one thing, and also be reminding self and selves that, of what I'm consciously trying to cast. So yeah, like everything within everything that we're saying at all times, we're always casting. And we've got this system, and we call it conscious and subconscious. In truth, we're just operating as one, but we're not realizing it. So a part of us that is called the conscious, yeah, a part of us that is called the conscious, I'm going to stop listening. The part of us that is called the conscious, um, this part of us, um, you know, is seemingly making decisions. Really, our conscious is being driven by what we call our subconscious. Um, I like to put these things two different ways. I think our subconscious is, I like to see it as our subconscious is what we're using. Um, in some ways, what I'm using now. Um, and, our source consciousness, rather, yeah, is the driving body of everything that we're doing. So we be using words and phrases a lot of the times, and these words and phrases, they just seem just like ordinary conversation, and we can say words very flippantly. We can even take some words that are not so great as spells and use them for pleasure. Use them in ways like like we're just gonna have some fun with it. We can take you back. Doesn't really mean anything. But really, in those moments, our soul's consciousness is driving that and giving us deep messages. So when we become very aware of the language that we're using at all times, and consciously writing and consciously looking at the etymology of all of our phrases and taking it back to the foundations of those words, we start to align with what our source consciousness is trying to say through us. And we, at that point, when we are saying it too consciously, become aligned with our source consciousness. And it's there where we really become the driver of our existence again. So it's very, very, very important. And just in the same way that parents have become disconnected from the names that they given to their children, same way we become disconnected in the language that we just use in our daily living while speaking to another, or speaking to ourselves even. Because we can be writing something, and as us speaking to ourselves, we're having these thoughts and we're writing. But what are we saying? And one great thing for me is that when I'm writing and I'm writing in these spells, I'm thinking sometimes, how is this going to be received? Is this person going to accept me? Because I write in spells, are they going to go, oh, you is a sheep? I'm not a sheep. Yes, you are. You are. You are. Divine source consciousness, matriarch, ram symbolically yoni. Yes, you are. But having to have these conversations, they give me an anxiety, and I think, oh, are they going to accept me? But when I write these words, every single time I punch through this anxiety, and I go, I'm willing to chance that they're going to accept me as I am. And if not, well, you don't get me then. So, yeah, that's very powerful for me and in my writing. Definitely facing that fear, overcoming that fear every single time I write. This is an active daily practice. Imagine like martial arts training, but with your consciousness all the time, every time you speak. So if I say all, I write in capitals ALL. If I say already, I write ALL in capitals, and then I write ready next to it. Already. And when I mean already, I don't mean just me and all of me already. I mean me encapsulating all of me ready. You see? So these become really, really, really powerful, powerful, powerful spells. Yeah, so words. Words are very, very important. And I am going to do, as I said, um, more in-depth looks into words, into the histories of some words. But really, what I want to give to you is not the knowledge, the specific knowledge of that, but the gifts of how to find the knowledge for yourself. Because it's in this thinking, oh, what does this word mean? Or, you know, sometimes you use a word and you think that word really sounds like that word. What am I really trying to say with this word? Like, really, real. Real could be, I don't know, like a tape, a reel. It could be to be wound. Yeah. We know real as truth as well. So yeah, like these are just some things that this is an example. You would start looking at that and start exploring. You know, is there a definitive real? Is it a cycle of perception in terms of what we see as being real? You know, that's just one. I'm just throwing it out there. Um, that when we each and every time we speak, and to some this might feel very like tiring. I don't want to have to think of every single word every time I'm speaking. I just want to say what I want to say, and that's it. You got what I was trying to say. That's it. Fine. That's all right. But in terms of enlightenment and connecting with yourself and creating what you want to create for your life, if you cannot stand the pain of just thinking even about the spells that you're making, then how can you create things that can be manifested for you to be able to get the things that you need? This is just like I call it karmic pain, where we just go through these frustrations, and actually once integrated, once integrated, it becomes lifestyle, and it becomes something just like me facing um facing my fear every time I write to a new person and I write with my spells. It becomes a daily way of life, and an empowering act for you as well, that you can do it. And you will look to a time ahead of yourself where you go like, raw boy, even raw. Why do I say that? And I say raw boy as well. You know what I mean? These are all spells that we got in our minds. But I would say to myself, I would have been so embarrassed before to even do that. I wouldn't have taken the time to do that before. And now look at me. I'm very conscious of everything that I say. That's very empowering. You know how empowering that feels, like battling with yourself. That is got to be um one of the most difficult things you can do. Externally fighting with someone only lasts so long, but when you offer yourself challenges for you to overcome, these things become a lifetime of work. You don't just get to satisfy that person's needs just for a moment and phew, oh, we're done with that. You gotta keep it up with yourself. You can't run from yourself like, oh shit, back in the mirror, like, oh, there I am again. can't run from me. Because, you know, and that's a good thing, that's a really good thing. And that initial pain of going through that, it doesn't, you don't think it's going to be initial, but it becomes, as I said, as you become integrated, with this new way of being, it just change, and then it's no longer a pain. So yeah, spells are very, very, very important. Names are very, very, very important. These names are the foundation of us and the words that we're using. Um, you just the spells that we're hearing, that we're listening to, they're not always coming from us, because us is not just us. Us is everything that's around us. So for those truth seekers out there who will be reading things and watching TV and checking for all the subliminals, yep, you're so right. You're right. The the language being used to us all the time from others and from media, say, on the outside are one thing, and on a source consciousness level is another. What we do need to remember, though, with this truth seekers, is that we, for the most part, are looking at it the wrong way, because we're not realizing that source consciousness is trying to talk to us. And we're seeing all the wicked and evils and all the things that propaganda and whatever and change us when we just got to remember something about information, about any kind of thing that impacts you and changes you, i.e., even sickness. A sickness for one person is empowering, and for another person is destructive. It all depends on the health of self, the health of the mind, the health of the body. These things are connected. When you're in a state of clarity, you're going to perceive these things different, because we've been living in a state of oppression, because we've been living in a state where we've been really cut off from our energies. When we're looking at these subliminal languages, we're only seeing the negatives that's been trying to give to us. We're not seeing the positive language that is being spoken to us, because our mind is not positive. Our mind is seeking that paradigm where it can relate to and connect with the not so nice to think about messages, maybe, that our source consciousness is trying to tell us as well. Often, when our source consciousness is trying to give us these messages, really what we're trying to do is put our hands out and say, help me. This is what I'm going through. We see this as being an attack on us, rather than hearing the screaming pain that we're in and thinking, wow, that's painful. How do I fix that? Um, Instead, we create campaign against these messages, rather than thinking about how can we resolve that. So I'll give you an example. Many cartoons and things, subliminal images of things like pedophilia, for example, and really, for me, understanding it now from a source consciousness level, and having that conversation in that way, where I get to see what that is saying and how that affects me as a whole, seeing that as a massive sickness in the world when it needs to be taken care of, and that is showing up in places that we can see it, to help us um, not only there about programming our youth, but really asking us to take time to watch the programs that our children are watching, watch over our children. Um, this is so very, very important. At the same time, whilst when the mind becomes clearer and healed, and one is on a path of of healing these things within us and around us, um, often the messages that we are seeing in those things is you know, can be perceived completely differently. So yeah, like, and these are conversations that only through our individual minds can we open up to. But we're to know that when we're hearing these spells, it's not for us to be afraid of any of these things. It's not for to attack anything, to attack any message, but listen to the message and deal with the things we need to deal with in a strategic and kind way that can help us to grow and help us more to understand rather than panic. One of my favorite movies, um, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Ironically, because I'm a flat earther. Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide. But the Hitchhiker's Guide itself is this book, and it helps you in whichever situation you're in. There's some advice for you for dealing with any entity within the whole universe, the universe in that heliocentric sense. Yeah. And the first rule on there is very good, and I do live by this. It said, don't panic. Literally, when you panic, everything always goes wrong. And this is what we do sometimes when we're trapped in that third dimensional sense, and we're not trying to listen to the spells that our source consciousness, the messages that are trying to come through. We act on that initial panic, and we're like, oh no, this is that, what we're gonna do, and then without even thinking. Whereas if we think about it more, then we can come to a state where we're saying, um, no, actually, these are some of the things we can do. We can start by raising our own children in a way where we teach them things, that they need to know to be able to equip them for life. We teach them as well how to say, not look for subliminals, yeah, but how to interact with their source consciousness as well. The same journey that we're living, this is something that they can really help as well. We watch over them as well. Again, not with panic, but we become, aligned once again with them and what they're doing. We spend time with them. We become their friends. They're not just our children where we have to feed and clothe and make sure they're all right and whatever. No, no, no. That's the matrix. Those are pod people. That's not how you raise kids. You have to actually give them what you've been living all this time. Main purpose was just to pass on everything you need to, like, what you know cumulative is so vast that unless you're spending a lot of time with a person, that it's going to be impossible for you to actually really pass it on. So spending more time with your children as well, these things really help us away from situations. I know it's sometimes very difficult. People have to go to work, say, so they have to leave their kids places and stuff like that. But even things like that, I do believe that, you know, we can't always choose where we are right now, but if we plan for a future, then we can see ourselves out of any situation, you know, and we shouldn't just be trying to just work round the clock just to pay bills, you know, just so we can keep our head and a roof over our head. If you're working round the clock to pay bills, you need to put a few hours in that day to actually craft in something that's going to be your own business where you can eventually stay at home with your children. You know, you have to, you know, it's your responsibility, you know. Of course, you could choose not to, but then this when, you know, this is where uh those lines, you know, are gonna get crossed because your source consciousness is gonna keep pulling you back and throw things in to remind you, can you just come back to them, please? Because the natural cycle of who we are depends on us being able to pass our knowledge down. So as generations of people, we can continue to evolve mentally, and we cannot continue to evolve mentally until we've received the knowledge from where we come from, so we can use that as a foundation to grow from to get to the next levels. It's pretty simple, but something that has been taken away from us because we're living in this third dimensional perception again, when we're not thinking about the spells, when we're not thinking about the importance of these messages or the importance of humanity as a whole cycle of who we are and where we're going to. We're just seeing ourselves here and now and what is painful and what you're trying to avoid. That pain is actually causing more long-term pain. So yeah, everything's gonna always draw you back to wanting to be with them, in it. Like, you know, this is why I do encourage people to unschool. They call it unschool their children. We only call it unschool because we need a name for it, because you think that school is just normal. You see, we put to a state of oppression where if you didn't have a qualification, then you couldn't get a job, yeah, or you couldn't own a business, or you wouldn't be respected or taken seriously. And then we create other places, you know, we put borders on them and call them countries, and we suck out anything that we consider to be of wealth out of those places and leave those places in poverty and don't give them these things. And now, in a, you know, we're not even there, but we've seen it on the news, we've seen the charities, we've seen the UNICEFs and whatever, and, you know, whatever Action Aid or whatever they are, with the little starving children. Oh my day, I wish I could go to school. And it's not like it's lies. It's not like it's lies, but it's what world government have done to us, you know, so that we can become, you know, really desperate to have this, what we think is education, so that we can be okay, so that we can survive. But in fact, this education is nothing like that. You know, this education actually is a time away, separating us from the real knowledge that we're supposed to be getting. And then as time goes on, we're seeing, you know, maybe, you know, 6 generations back, yeah, children would have been smart enough at 10 to go to work, even though that wouldn't have been okay, but they would have been able to, because they pretty clued up about the world and things. And now, like, you know, very dependent yet very separated at that age, you know, and definitely during teenage years, not really knowing too much about life at all. And even people that are finishing school are going to university and stepping out of university and not ready for the world. And now, of course, they can drive house prices up and force you to live in houses altogether, so you don't even have to have a sense of independence to look after yourself, because you can't anyway. So you're all right in your one room, and it's all just a massive cycle, one that can just be simply broken just by letting your kids learn through you and all the things that you know. And a lot of the adults that are sending their kids to school, sorry to say, are not really equipped to pass down knowledge to their children, because they went to school themselves and they didn't get the knowledge from their parents and grandmothers and stuff like that. The way we would have been getting knowledge in the past, we'd know all of the recipes and stuff from our family. you know we would know, um our spirituality. We'd know where we come from. We'd know about our ancestral lineage. We'd know so much stuff that is really, really, really important to the essence of who we are, and finding out what our individual life purpose is. So we're all just very, um, well, for the most part, those of us that had education from the system, just kind of got one kind of blanket knowledge about like some things, and then having to do a lot of that work later in life to rediscover who we really are, so we can find out how to integrate, the things that we're learning into, what we actually do with our lives every day. So yeah, so they call it unschooling, because it's again, this is a very powerful spell, and one is very clear, that it's like an anti-school movement, where we're not gonna learn in the same way that that school is set up for us to learn, and that we're going to go back to the natural state of learning and curiosity, and also giving the power back to the parent to use their minds, to be creative, to be loving, to be kind, and really become one with their children, to really get into their minds and help them to flourish in their individual ways, which they need. So that is very, very important. And all the children that I've ever met that have been unschooled are so bright, and so so sure of themselves, actually, like really quite strong personality types. And um you can really, like, you can clearly see, the direction in which they're heading, as opposed to a lot of children who go to school, um who feel one way at home, and then become intimidated into being someone else when they go to school, so that they can just get by, and often losing the sense of who that child self is as they grow up, so that they can fit in, maybe even putting their dreams to the side, and thinking of, those deep longings of their imagination as, you know, something that cannot be real. So that is very, very, very sad, I would say. And as a parent, that is definitely your duty to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, um, their imagination is their source consciousness, speaking to them everything that they need to know, just as it did for me. Like when I was a child, I have quite vivid memories of my childhood. My child self was very much alive throughout my life. Um, Shout out to my dad again for calling me Serena. You know, that fragility was quite hard to shake, um, and really a solid foundation for keeping that child's self alive, you know, through the pain of being hurt several times. Um, you know, that that child self really, you know, helped me to like like remember who I am. Um, but yeah, like I would dream often of um just really shining bright, and I didn't know it. I didn't know that I could be a powerful force. As again, I saw myself as fragile, and for me to be a powerful force, to be someone who creates, to be someone of importance was, you know, such an impossibility that it was a dream. But my child self really believed in it. My child self was like, look at me now. I'm so fragile, but I'm gonna be her when I'm older, and shout out to me, big up to myself. As I grew older, I never, ever, ever lost that dream, no matter what happened to me, no matter what beat me down, no matter how many times I tried to settle and be a normal person. You know, a sense inside just told me, you're so much more than this. So I couldn't stay in that dark place for too long. That became a driving essence. And the child's imagination, you know, is the driving essence. And we've got a slightly off topic, um, but it was really important to say because these spells that we're learning, they're not just for us, they're for the children as well. They're so that when we communicate with one another and we're communicating with source consciousness, because of course every time when we're spelling, we are manifesting, we are asking the universe for what we want. In fact, sorry, we're telling the universe, we're telling ourselves what we want. We're telling ourselves what we are creating. Yeah. You know, this is also a part of our training, how to create that platform within our generation as adults that children can look to and learn from, as opposed to maybe um the unawakened versions of ourselves that are just thinking about how we get through in the matrix. you know um Definitely we're no longer in survival mode, but we're now in growth mode. So that is very, 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 very important. And it's important to so understand not just, what these spells are doing, how these spells are creating, but also the purpose of these spells, and the importance of passing them down. As we come into a new age, we are seeing new technologies being developed. We're seeing new platforms of consciousness. I wouldn't say arising as such, because I don't believe technology has gone anywhere at all. I just believe that we in the dark. to what a lot of the things that are around us. But you know, as we're coming into the light of all of the tools that we can use to become better people, um, we definitely need this next generation to understand all of these things. So as they use these tools, they can do so in a way that benefits all um, all of all kinds, every species, including ourselves, including the land, and connect, you know, interdimensionally with all the physical and non-physical being of ourselves, so that yeah, you know, we can all rise through that together, and everything that we do is connected at all times to every single part of us. So it's very you know, these are things to be aware of when we're using these spells. We're not just spelling for ourselves. That made me think just now. So, like, you know, some people talk about spells and they think that you can somehow do a spell to somebody and that spell is just like for them. There's no spell that you can do on another person. Whatever spell you've done on another person, they have manifested it for themselves. That is you, and they've manifested it. When you think you are doing a spell on someone else, you are truly disconnected and you are the tool of that person. That person needed that kick up the ass, you know, or, you know, they needed, so that's a really bad phrase, sorry. They needed that, you know, fire under them to get them moving, and you was basically a tool of the universe in doing that. However, as you're doing that, you're not doing it to them, you're actually doing it to yourself. So just be very, very aware. Um, Witches, you've been conned by television and fake books into thinking that you can somehow cast spells on other people. You're only ever, ever, ever casting on yourself. Um, Other people who you integrate with, other people who are aligned with your consciousness, with your thoughts, whilst you're casting these spells, are integrated with you and through you. Um, so any healing that you're doing for somebody is really healing that you're looking for in yourself in some form. If you were a doctor, um, you know, if you were a doctor and someone's coming to you and they're like, oh, I need, you know, this specific type of healing. When it might not be that specific type of healing in you, or it might be, but it most definitely is going to be somewhere within you. It may even be spiritually, it may be in the way in which you interact with things, the way in which, and you know, this is often common that, you know, um that external spell of what we're seeing, because your spells are not always words. Spells are sometimes events and things as well, things around you happening, i.e. someone coming to you and healing and is saying, okay, like, I've got a bad back. Okay. um you know, that could mean stability. It could be stability in you, and that you're, whilst you're healing them, um you know, to really help to give them that healing, you need to go away at yourself and think, okay, like, maybe some parts in my life are not stable. You know, your spine is what keeps you upright. um how do I go about caring for myself in a way that now helps me to become more stable in my being, so where I can feel safe. And, you know, message for me there. There are lots of things that you can do. Again, you can work on your body. You can work on your reactions. You can work on strengthening the connections that you have. All of these things, again, they're just examples. But that's an example of, you know, how we take that message and we see it from a source consciousness like point of view. And if you were gonna give this person some type of healing, like, it's okay to just give them, say, I don't know, Reiki or a massage or whatever. But as a witch, you can now go away and do that work on yourself. And well, I know it's not being mysterious, but we see mysteriously that this person might align with something that helps them. It might be exercise, it might be a better diet or something as well, and something that helps them and helps to relieve their back pain. So as that person is connected to you, you start to heal the things within yourself via the deeper messages that you received, and then that will to help them. This is the true alchemy of craft and knowing of self, when you align to source consciousness and not external deities. And people pray to gods and ask them for strength. I don't pray to any gods. I am goddess. So I am aligned, and I don't ask for strength. Sometimes I do, sometimes I forget. But when my strength really does kick in, it doesn't kick in from asking. It kicks in from remembering who I am, and remembering that everything that is happening around me is doing so as a message to me, and doing so to help me to see what it is that I need to grow to be the best version of myself. And through that, I can be a healer. Now, if I feel at any point like I want to hurt someone else, it's because I'm hurting. I'm hurting and I wish to hurt myself. But hurting yourself can help sometimes. I'm not going to lie, it can help. Sometimes, you know, you are doing some messed up things and you think, well, if I can just put a stone in my path there and I can trip up before I actually get to that point where I really mess myself up, then that will save me. So sometimes we do. Sometimes we say, oh, I wish for this and I wish for that. And then those things can come. But they also come into us as well. And maybe in that moment of ignorance, that's exactly what we needed. But only for a moment, not whilst we're in our true power. Because truly, as source, once aligned, what we want is to heal. And if we don't have to trip ourselves over, if we can become conscious before even reaching that point and go, oh, this is what's happening. Oh, let me just give myself some healing. Then that is a much better way of removing, you know, those blockages in others that are causing them and ourselves to act in ways that's against us. Now, that, you know, that particular style of craft, a lot of witches are not going to like that. Because they're going to go, no, but it wasn't me. It was that person that did that to me. And that is true. But everyone is always a projection of us. And this is where the geocentric understanding of ourself goes beyond, just what we can get from it. Or say rather, the geocentric perception, the truth of who we are, helps us to understand that we're connected and that there's no space between any entity of us, that every piece of fabric that is connected between my body and yours, down to, this phone that you're watching from, or laptop that you're watching from, or even TV screen that you're watching from. This is me, this is you, this is us. We are one fabric, and there's no, even the matter that connects each individual droplet of matter, even that, just like zeros and ones, just like connects, the little things that connect the thing, even that is us as well. So just because the phone is not speaking yet, just because the phone is not speaking doesn't mean that it's not made in the same fabric. There's no separation between us. This helps us, not just helps us, this ensures that we remember what we're doing when we're casting, so that we can do that in a conscious way and in a truthful way. I like to remember this when I'm doing any kind of protection on myself. That it's not protection. It's like sun cream, if sun cream worked. It's like sometimes a lot of dark energy is coming to the surface, and maybe crystals or certain meditative practices help us to reduce the not power but the pain of these frequencies, so that we could just see them a little bit clearer. So yeah, like, not actually going, dark force, go away, I banish you. I banish you? You're banishing yourself? That dark force is only coming to you to tell yourself what it is you need to know about yourself to fix up, and then you banish yourself. How many times can you do that before you stop telling yourself what you need to know? Truthfully, the Most High in you will never ever give up. But you might try and find other ways. They might not be as good. After a while, you're probably going to try again. It's a cycle. It's going to go round and round and round. This idea of banishing something is not going to get you very far. It's just only going to be momentary. But, acknowledging your presence and say, okay, I acknowledge what's going on here. And this presence is now speaking to me and telling me that I need to give myself some self-care. I need to take a moment. I need to take several seats, as they say, you know, and I need to replenish my energy so that I have the energy to be able to deal with all of these questions that are rising me now from having to face this dark energy. And as we do more and more and more of this, we stop to perceive any of these energies as dark energies. We just start to see everything as messages and say thank you. So all them stories that we heard about witches and this and whatever, these are from dark ages, obviously. I'm just hypothesizing, but it's coming from common sense. Yeah. That anyone in their true power, spirit, knowing that they are all matter, cannot be trying to banish any energies. Sometimes things come back to us to remind us of where we've been. We get triggered. We go, oh, nope, 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 not again, not again. I'll banish you. But guess what? You see our past, you see the things that we've gone through, even though we don't want to keep living them over and over again, we do have to remember them. They are very, very, very important to us so that we can know where we're going to, so that we can not make the same mistakes. So it's now down to us in that moment to not just realize about the things that's in the past, but realize that we were quite hurt by that. And even though we learned from that, we can still be triggered from that. And we need to get stronger about these triggers. You know, we cannot be allowing the triggers to just make us panic and jump. Remember the first rule? Don't panic. Instead, we can go, okay, all right, I see that. I've lived that. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful to remember, you know, where I came from. True. Maybe even that message is appearing in a moment just before we're heading into an event that could potentially take us into a similar test that could take us back into that road. So it's with humility and with love and acceptance that we welcome that energy. We don't panic at it. We listen to it. We say thank you to it. And then we can, from there, we can say, okay, you're showing me something I need to know for the future. And in that moment, there might not be any way of resolution, but that's the resolution. The resolution is in you. The resolution is not about the external. The external is just a message. The external is just a message. And the real power is in hearing the message over the pain. So not allowing that pain to trigger you and take you back to a place where you feel like you have to defend yourself because you're back to where you was, knowing that you're no longer there anymore. And maybe if you can't, maybe you're not. Maybe you're still actually there. You didn't realize. And that's something that you can work on as well. So that was a lot of stuff that we went through for this first this first tutorial. And um yeah, I just got a quick recap summary. We spoke about the importance of names and how names in children and names that we give ourselves, and definitely the language that we use for ourselves as well, how that really determines who we are and our life path, and how we can accept those names and look at them even when they are misplaced. They have deep inner meanings, and everything comes to us as a as as a reality, as it's meant for us. So we don't need to feel necessarily like something is wrong, but we can look deeper. But how we can actually consciously create those journeys and make those journeys a lot easier and simpler for our children, simply by um, giving them names at birth that they could really live to strive through, names of power that you know will help to give them the tools throughout life. We talked about using spelling consciously in our words as well and our daily vocabulary, and how these things help to solve fear, how they help to allow you to align with the inner source message of things that are being like said to us. We spoke a bit about unschooling and um, time spent with children and passing this knowledge, and how important this knowledge and knowledge of spelling is to you know to us, you know as a consciousness being able to evolve, how it's really the whole purpose of it as well. Yeah, and yeah, we spoke about reading messages from everywhere and casting spells outwards as well, and the reality of that there's no reality of casting spells outwards. The inner truth is that everything that we cast is inside and meant for us. So in the same way that we cast, and that casting is going inwards, the same thing, everything is going inwards, everything is going inwards. We are merely the observer, and we are learning, and we're just learning how to do all of this just along the way and become more aligned with that source within us, and that is us, all around us, that is creating this journey that we're on. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it really informative. I'm sure you did. Thank you for those who stayed to the end of this. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please do share this video with friends and family. Please do leave comments, um, not just comments, but questions as well. Questions, and let's try to explore, deeper into some of these points that we've made, and then I can hopefully take some of those questions and you know look deeper into what that all is in another video. And so we can go deeper and deeper, and it is by interacting with one another that we should be able to do that. Again, thank you so much for listening. I hope to have some more videos soon. Other stuff that I'd like to cover is speaking to yourself, reading the signs and symbols, alchemist style. Um, if anyone's read, um, you know, The Alchemist, um, yeah, like I will show you how to do that, how to read the signs and symbols all around us, how to connect with your fifth dimensional senses, how to speak in many different formats at the same time, using your consciousness and using the foundation of what I've given you today, the spells that we've been using as well, and how, yeah, and how to train that. So um yeah, thank you again. um can't say thank you enough, because you are me. And really, really grateful for this knowledge. Also, maybe later on, talk about um you know, alchemy and spell casting, and look and take a deeper look at some rituals, take a deeper look at meditation, take a deeper look at transcendental meditation and astral projection and or astral dreaming, and the meanings in words, and how we can achieve this neo status when he goes to the white room and starts downloading, all of these things are absolutely possible. Um, and I know because I do it. Um, and how we can train ourselves in our dreams. Thank you very much. Again, share this video, and I really hope you're having a beautiful day reflection. I'm really grateful for you that you get to um, experience now, you know, life with this new understanding. All the love, our Mother Goddess Baphomet.